Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Wayland.
And if you're watching, you already know, but if you're listening, we have a very special guest today. Please welcome Zack, our buddy.
Good to be on, guys.
Yes. Our most consistent listener.
We're only one. Anyway. We did...
Well, see,
It's an
now,
honor.
Appreciate it. Rain, you gave me some horrible news the other day, and that was a part of our statistics that people usually don't make it past 3 minutes. So that's...
That is terrible. It's terrible
yeah,
news.
That's horrible.
yeah. Here,
That's terrible
let me
news.
see if I can. Let me see if I can find
Oh.
that exact same statistic again.
It's not great, but you know, at least someone's clicking on something somewhere. You know. And
I
we're
would
not
have
even.
bumped it
We
up a
should
little
be.
more than 3
We
minutes.
should be more clickbaity. Maybe that's what we need.
Like clickbait, clickbaity,
Like I don't know.
like thumbnails.
Yeah. Like Rain shirtless in one of them, and it's like, what's this about? You know, well,
Well, I was just about to say, if this was like, old school YouTube, like 2010 YouTube, just put like a woman in a bikini in the thumbnail, and boom, there you go.
yeah, and then it's rickrolled, and then it's yeah. I mean, we will have Rain in some sort of scandalous thing, and then they click on it, and it's just like, oh, it's Solaris, it's Tarkovsky. What are they talking about?
Oh my god. No, it's mirror redux.
It's mirror. Yeah, we do mirror again, which we should.
Oh my god.
That's
Dude, I've made that same joke about OnlyFans. But then it's just like someone like reading like instruction manuals to you, like fully clothed. Like
Yeah.
I get into this deep. Like, all right, so step 26.
so, yeah. Subscribe.
$20 a
They're
month.
subscribe. Yeah, $20. Oh,
No
man.
paywalls.
That's what's up. You're a good person.
That's why it's $20 a month.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Anyway, so really nothing. I had nothing this weekend that I watched or did or nothing.
Well,
of
well,
note,
that's-
nothing.
Well, that's
significant.
not entirely true, Jeremy.
It's nothing significant. I mean, we had the nephews this weekend, and we watched the Mario movie, and it was fun. I didn't hate it. It
Fine.
didn't blow me away.
Oh god. I mean, again, like what we were talking about off mic, it literally was made for someone that's like, hey, you played Mario before? Here you go. that was the whole movie.
Yeah, honestly, it reminded me how much I knew about Mario because I was watching. I'm like, I don't know anything about it, and then they're doing stuff. I go, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
He gets his go-kart. I go, oh, yeah. They get the
nostalgia
Rainbow Road.
kicked
I
in.
go, right.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, like I said, supposedly the sequel is going to be Luigi's Mansion, so that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah. In
And
5 years, whenever they get back to work and we get stuff again.
yeah.
That's true.
Especially, yeah. How devastated were y'all about the news that Dune Part 2 got delayed?
I crushed me.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah. I almost threw over Ashley and I's coffee table. Because I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean they're delaying Dune Part 2?
And it's Spider-Man. Beyond the Spider-Verse, that got delayed.
Well, That's because all those animators quit
Oh.
because of work conditions, apparently. Which means our theory was wrong. It wasn't animated and ready to go.
Well, okay, so I think that, you know, the worse the work condition, sometimes the better the product. I mean, listen, I'm not condoning it. But I ordered those DVDs yesterday, and they're here today. That's all I'm saying. Okay?
Oh my god.
That's pretty cool.
Holy shit.
Uh, anyway,
Oh my god. All right. Jeremy, what are we doing today?
today we are wrapping up season 8. Yes, thank you. We are wrapping up season 8. This is our end of season series, and we are finishing out this from stage to screen, Act 2, with The Whale.
Such a banger to end this on, dude.
Hey man, it's chronological. It's not my fault.
Wasn't designed.
Man.
Yeah, that's right.
So Zach, I usually ask Jeremy this, but what did you think the first time you ever saw the movie?
So this actually was my first time to see it, which was last week. So I got late to it. It got pushed back, and then other stuff came out, and so I guess I watched it maybe last Friday. And I think overall I enjoyed it. I need another watch
Sure.
to, I think, kind of smooth out everything I think about it. Overall, I think it's very introspective. Like, it makes you think. I think there's some parts that were kind of like some dark humor. Some parts that were certainly made me feel like this is disgusting. And all those things. Definitely not afraid of like that part of the movie, but I think I enjoyed it. Maybe as we talk, we can help me clear up what I think about it. I think I lean similar. Aronofsky is just one of those guys. Like, his movies, sometimes I'll really dig it. Like, I was definitely okay with Mother. I enjoyed Mother. I know pretty much everyone else didn't. And then there's stuff like Noah that I think is like just kind of a joke. I couldn't get into it. It just wasn't. And so that's like my Aronofsky kind of view. It's like I can dig what he's doing and maybe kind of pick up what he's putting down. And sometimes I'm just like, no, this isn't for me. But I didn't feel that way with The Will. I was excited to watch it. Glad that I finally had a really good reason to. And overall, I think I really enjoyed the movie.
Oh man, that's awesome, because now I'm not the one who hasn't seen it. Usually I'm the one who hasn't seen the movie.
Yeah.
Man, I completely agree with you, Zach. Aronofsky is, well, I mean, this will be the third Aronofsky movie we've done. I really liked Requiem.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, email. I really liked Requiem for a Dream. I didn't like the last 10 minutes when it was just those fast cuts of just all hell breaking loose.
It's my favorite part.
Yeah, it's the best part.
Yeah.
I didn't really dislike Mother. I felt like he just really beat you over the head with the message and the point. I think when I rewatched our episode of Mother, I want to say we said, yeah, I get it, at least 50 times.
Yeah.
Because again, he was just way too the point of it was just he just beat you over the head with it. But The Whale, I was super excited for, just because I'm a big fan of Brendan Fraser. Have we done a Brendan Fraser movie yet, Jeremy?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, we kind of talked. we kind of talked about Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and movies we hate. So then, yeah, this will be actually the first one. So, so it's a big friend of Brendan's. And I was like, Aronofsky at the helm. I think this will pay off really well. And I was right. I remember when Jeremy and I walked out of the theater after we saw it. I was speechless. Like I needed Jeremy to be like, okay, can you explain to me what we just saw?
Yeah. He's good at it.
I guess I don't know. I did some more research this time, and what I got was I was like, oh, I missed that. So there's stuff in here that But anyway, yeah, I loved it. Obviously, I thought it was wonderful. I like the phrase. I think I liked it. I like because it's one of those films that I think for most people when they see it, they're sort of taken aback by a lot of what plot elements Samuel D. Hunter is using here, because I think a lot of people will find the obesity sort of off-putting and sort of maybe kind of exploitative in a way, and that might take people away from it, even though the story is magnificent and it's an interesting story about making up for lost time and reconnection and trying to make amends, and but I think people might miss that or sort of wash it away because they're like, yeah, but what's with the it was too much. It was too much with his weight and his eating disorder and his obesity. So I get that. I think we should get this out of the way. There was controversy with Brendan Fraser getting casted because he's not 600 pounds. Because we're at that stage in existence where I heard one person say it's because people who are 600 pounds aren't Brendan Fraser's age, and I like that. So and obviously they wouldn't be able to, people who are 600 pounds have a hard time doing most things, and so it would be hard to be on set all the time. But this was amazing for a lot of reasons. So number one, the movie was fantastic, right? The writing was great. The adaptation was done very, very well. And the performances were magnificent. But this has that extra element to this film, which was Brendan Fraser, period. Right? His resurgence back into acting and skyrocketing back up to A-list, that was a big deal. And I think it made a huge difference of how that movie was perceived in the first place. If it had been anybody else, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, here, before we keep moving on, just so now that we have Zack on, just so on the off chance someone else is listening, this is what The Whale is about. So The Whale, as we've already said, stars Brendan Fraser as Charlie, a 600-pound man who is on a quest for redemption. We learn through the story that he left his wife and 8-year-old daughter to pursue a romantic relationship with one of his students, who was a man. And but his lover, Alan, has since passed away, and Charlie has been self-harming by overeating. And we're literally seeing the last week of his life in the film. And I don't want to spend too much time on the synopsis because I like where we're already going. So that's The Whale. That was it. I really don't want to waste time.
It's quick. It was
That's
too.
fine.
Yeah, no,
it's fine.
But back to what you're saying, Jeremy. No, I agree. If this had been anyone else, period, if it wasn't Brendan that was cast, and as I learned last night, apparently Aronofsky was not the original choice for directing. Originally, it was offered to George Clooney.
Interesting.
To direct, which, again, I think it still would have been a good movie had Clooney been at the helm. I don't think it would have been a great movie if it wasn't for Aronofsky and for Brendan.
It definitely would have been different. I agree.
100%. 100%. Because I don't think, and again, this isn't a critique of George Clooney and the way he makes films, but I don't think he would have had the playwright write the script. I think he would have had someone else adapt the play, and we would have gotten kind of a version, like essentially they would have used the bones of the play and then just made everything else around it. As where Samuel was able to take his play exactly the way it is and just make it a little bit more cinematic, which is his words, actually.
Oh. Yeah, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
Again, it would have been definitely a little bit different. I think, I don't know if it would have been maybe as dark. I don't know, because when you think Aronofsky, you think, he's going to do whatever it takes for, to get the emotion, to get the tone, to get all of that right, no matter how sad it gets, or how dark it gets, or how depressing. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know if Clooney's got it in him. I mean, Good Night and Good Luck is an amazing film. Obviously, that's not the only one he's done, but Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is also amazing. But you're right. I think, with Aronofsky doing it, it does lend to that tone that he's so good at capturing, right? That those motifs. Okay. Let's start with the obvious, and we can start with Charlie. Zach, I don't know if you read this, or Rain. I read that when Hunter was writing the story, was writing the play, he wasn't obese until way later. That he sort of came up with that as sort of a barrier between Charlie and the audience. There needed to be something there that the audience would have a hard time latching onto, I guess, or there'd be some sort of disconnect there. So, which I find fascinating, because it leads us to a deeper, more true, which is the main theme of the film, a true analysis, right? Because people are going to think the whale, he's fat, the end, that's why, and that is not why. So, Zach, what did you think about Charlie? What did you think about the weight being a part of it, and how much or how little it actually affects the overall story or true theme of the film?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very effective device. I didn't hear about that of Hunter, of that being a thing later in the story of him becoming obese, but I would imagine that the people that really enjoyed the play, or that are more of a enjoy watching like the live plays and stuff, would be the people that are saying, Darren's focusing too much on when he's eating, and the extra noises and the sweat and all the other things that come with the shower, all the different things, would probably say it's too much and it's taking away. But I think, when it's on a stage and you just see this large person, that's enough to create that. Like, they're not going to look past that. And on film, I think you have to go into those things to create that for the person watching, because it's different visual. And so I thought it was very effective. And I do think, to your point, it didn't take it away. And I think what the scene where that happens is whenever his daughter first comes, and she's like, "You're disgusting," and he's like, "Well, I know I'm fit." And she's like, "No, it's not because you're fat. It's because you abandoned me." It's like,
Right.
and that was the idea. It's like, it has nothing to do with the weight. This is all about real life situations, real things happening. And so, yeah, for me, I really enjoyed it. I think it creates exactly what was intended. And I don't think, because of the writing was written so well and pretty early on, like I said, whenever it's the first time his daughter's there. I feel like they helped me as a viewer get past, like, okay, this isn't about a fat man. This is about, hurt and, loneliness, and trying to rebuild some relationships that have been broken and abandoned.
I sorry. I would agree. Yeah. I definitely, when I saw the first trailer, I thought it was going to be purely about the weight. But then, the exact scene that Zach's talking about I was like, oh, it has nothing to do with the weight. The weight is sort of like, if I can give it a good analogy, which hopefully this is a good analogy, it's almost like a smoking gun. It's always there. We know it's there, but this isn't the reason why, like Ellie, for instance, has all this animosity towards him. It has nothing to do with his weight. It has everything to do with, you abandoned me when I was 8 years old for a man, and you just left me behind. But yeah, it's exactly what Zach said. It's such an effective tool to put some distance essentially between Charlie and the audience.
I agree. I think that if it had gone the other way, and let's say Christian Bale in The Machinist, if he was that thin and in this same scenario, right? I think it works exactly the same, because it's still a disconnect. There's still a physical manifestation of this guilt and regret and loneliness and mourning that Charlie's going through, right? So that has a lot to do with it as well. I think there needed to be a physical transformation, whether it be on either end of the spectrum, right? To show that he's always hurting, right? And putting himself in that position because he feels that he deserves it, which is why he's not going to the doctor after his cardiac episode in the beginning of the film. He's like, I'm not going to the doctor. And of course, Liz gives that perfect sort of foreshadowing sentence, which is, you're not going to make it to the weekend.
Well, and there's another thing to that as well, because like what Zach mentioned is, and I want us to get into later, but the movie is very real world stakes. I was watching an interview with Brendan and Darren, and Brendan said, like, he spent time with people who were obese or dealing with an eating disorder, and a lot of people who are obese don't go to the hospital just because maybe it is something that's subconscious, but they just don't. And Charlie may not want to go because he feels like he deserves this, which I feel like is partly true. But I think another part of it is, maybe he doesn't want to be seen as, which I think this could be true, but he doesn't want to be seen as a freak, which of course we see later with his binge episode, which I really want to dedicate some time to later. But yeah, I think both. I think he doesn't want to go because he feels like he deserves whatever he's got coming to him for having done this to himself, but also he doesn't want to be considered a freak
or waste the money.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, but now, okay, we've talked about Charlie. Let's talk about Brendan for just a second.
Sure.
Brendan is awesome. I mean, nowhere in the realm of possibility did I think he couldn't pull a role like this off. You know, as I said at the top of the show, I am such a big fan of his. I mean, and this is a controversial statement. I think The Mummy is one of his best films. Like, I know everyone out there likes the Tom Cruise version, whatever.
Nobody likes the Tom Cruise version. That's
but I love Brendan. I think he can do no wrong in my eyes. I mean, yes, some of his movies have not been very successful, like Monkey Bone, for instance. But I still love Monkey Bone. And it's because of Brendan. He
Christ. Fine. Go ahead.
Oh, dude, we're gonna for sure. Since you said that, we're for sure gonna do it next season now.
Wonderful.
But so when I heard that he was gonna get cast, I was sold right off the bat. And I was watching the special features on my Blu-ray, and they talked about how Brendan understood Charlie apparently right from the get-go. Like, he understood exactly who Charlie was. And it was just so impressive that he was able to understand this character from day one and knew exactly who Charlie was and how Charlie was going to be presented. And
it might also be because he fell out of the public eye for a while, and when he resurfaced, he had gained a lot of weight. And I mean that this is just facts. And he got a lot of pushback and a lot of hate for gaining all of that weight. And I think that, of course, helps understand this character that is so reclusive and so afraid of people seeing him because of how he looks.
That's true. Yeah, because I mean, he was pretty fit during the Mummies, but then if anyone remembers, when I talked about Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, he felt like he was held together with duct tape during that movie because it just absolutely just destroyed his body.
Held together with duct tape.
His words. I'm just verbatiming it. But yeah, man, I don't like you said at the top of the show. I don't think there could have been anyone else to play Charlie. I think it had to be Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And again, Charlie is such an interesting character, and this is a great transition into Ellie, because Charlie, I said it at the top of the show, values truth more than anything. He says it when he's talking to his class in the very beginning, right? Understanding the truth of the writing and the honesty of the writing will help you better to analyze it and become better writers in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where he does get frustrated, especially near the end, about he just hates all of these people who are just being dishonest with themselves, right? And dishonest just in general. Ellie comes in, and Ellie is the same way, but she goes about it a different way. So Ellie also wants people to just be honest and to just, cut the shit, just tell me exactly what you mean, right? But she does it she manipulates people into revealing their truth and being honest, right? It just turns out that when she's berating Charlie to be honest and to tell her exactly how he feels, that is how he feels, right? He's just nice. I think is what frustrates her, because he really does think that she's amazing, and he really does think that she has potential and that she's wonderful and nice. But when Thomas shows up and is hiding so much of himself from everyone, she doesn't like that at all, and she knows exactly how to fix that. So let's talk about Ellie for a few minutes.
Yeah. Jeremy, you've never, was this the first time you've ever seen Sadie Sink before? Since,
Yes.
You've never seen Stranger Things past
that
season
is correct.
1.
I didn't know she was in that, but yes, this is the first time.
I know, Zach, you've seen Stranger Things past season 1.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. I've seen all of it. Yeah. I've seen all of it.
Yeah. I had a sneaking suspicion, Jeremy, this is the first time you've ever seen Sadie Sink.
She was great.
She was fantastic. She was phenomenal. Sorry. It's interesting. She knows how to really play the really hard person who's actually really vulnerable underneath it all. If you would have seen seasons 2 through 4 of Stranger Things, you would have already known that. But she's so phenomenal, and it's interesting. We get conflicting views on Ellie. We from her mom and from Charlie and even Liz. Charlie just sees that she just needs a little guidance. Her mom sees her as evil, and Liz just sees her as a rebellious teenager. But I think these conflicting views really sum Ellie up. I think she is all of these things. She can be evil, with all the stuff she's putting up on her Facebook page. I think she is a rebellious teenager, with the fact that she doesn't tell her mom that she's been seeing Charlie. And I think that, again, like we've been saying, Charlie does believe that she is a good person, and she just needs just a little bit, just of a helping hand to kind of remember that she is amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Ellie is like a very, just like very necessary, like in this whole story of someone that is like that. I think it's just another device to be able to, because I think all the characters, they're all dealing with something, and they're all doing it in a way that, at least as what's portrayed, isn't always like what's right. It's like Ellie, and all with a good intention. Like Thomas wants someone to be saved. Liz wants to physically take care of Charlie. Charlie just wants everyone to be honest, and same with Ellie. And Ellie's just a jerk about it, though, and like that's how she is hiding from all the stuff that she's feeling. And so she's just throwing all these jabs and all this other stuff, which most of it is true. It's pretty, ruthless. But there's a lot of truth in it, because she values that. But obviously better ways to deliver it. But teenagers don't always, know how to communicate. And that's portrayed through Ellie. And I think, just everything she's feeling, all the hurt and stuff, she feels like she's, putting up this front that every teenager does, and that they're tougher than they actually are. But it takes no time at all to realize she's just hurt. She's mad about what's happened. She's mad about her past, and she wants a dad, and she hasn't had one. And and then you just get to see her kind of like, that ruthlessness, that rebelliousness that's in her. But also there's just like a little bit of light, and Charlie, his character, sees that in people. And of course he would see that in his daughter. And so he sees what can be good, right? Sees it from an early age with the essay, and still sees it whenever he finally reconnects with her years later. And so Ellie, she's very, it is Sadie Sink's right up her alley for that type of character. Right, it's very early in her career, so she has really, I think, mastered that. Just being having some fire to her, and being able to deliver those hard lines. I can imagine what it would be like to say those things as a younger person like that to someone like Brendan, and just being able to get in that mindset. But she crushed it. She kills it, and you can really feel a lot of that hate and the pain that she's feeling in her words.
I completely agree, especially with what you said about she just wants a dad. But she has all this hurt and this pain and this anger that it's hard for her to let that go, especially because she's been doing it for so long. She's had all this pain and this hurt for so long that it's hard to let go, because it's easier to just utterly destroy Charlie, because she knows she can. It would be harder to let it go when he reaches out to try to reconnect and forgive him. Honestly, I'm actually glad Samuel D. Hunter kept her like that, kept her in that mentality up until the end of the movie, because I feel like it wouldn't have hit harder when she essentially forgives him at the end of the movie, had she just forgiven him right when we met her. I think it was necessary to keep her in this constant state of beratement and ruthlessness and anger until the end.
Yeah, I mean, she's different. There were times when I really didn't think she was doing anything positive, right? There, when he, for instance, one of the very first, it's so dumb and it's so small, and you think that he's just being naive and optimistic when she writes the haiku, because she's saying these terrible things, but he realized it's in haiku form, and it makes him giddy because she's giving him what he wants without being upfront about like, okay, fine, I'll write things for you and I'll put effort into it. Like that, you would think on the surface level it's not putting effort into it at all, and it was an accident. And of course Charlie is just like, no, it was deliberate, and she's trying, and there's someone who loves me in there. And then later on when she basically outs Thomas to his church and his family, and you're thinking, wow, that's terrible, she's not nice. but then he's like, no, she did it to help him, because now they're accepting him back home, and the church is like, it's just money, it's fine, and all that stuff. And so again, you keep thinking that maybe he's just being naive, and he's just optimistic, and he just wants her to be nice, and maybe she really isn't. But I do truly think that she is doing things for good and doing the right thing, and it's just in her way of doing the right thing, and trying to help people along by manipulating them and making them do what she wants, that she feels is good for them, which ends up being good for them, hopefully on purpose.
Well, and like we've been saying, she's being true to herself, which is why I think Charlie, I think that's why Charlie doesn't see the bad. She's being true to who she is.
Honest.
She's being honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now this is going to be okay. So here's the part of the film that I found interesting and sort of ties in with our last episode, and Zach's going to help us out with this one, I hope, is the religious aspect of this of this film, because there is a religious aspect in sort of a negative way, where this church has essentially ruined a few people's lives in this film, in this story. You have Charlie, Alan, Liz, and Thomas that have all been affected by this church in some way or another. And I thought it was fascinating because it was sort of, it wasn't any sort of denomination. You know, Hunter's doing a good job with not giving it specifics, so you can just say it's just religion, right? It's just generic faith.
I read in the original play they were Mormon.
There you go.
And then he changed it. He changed it for the film. I think I can get us pointed in the right direction with that.
Oh, let's go.
Because Samuel, I was watching the special features on my Blu-ray, and he grew up in the town where the movie is set, Moscow, Iowa.
Ohio.
I think it's Indiana.
It was Idaho.
No, Idaho. Yeah, Moscow, Idaho. He grew up in that town, and he grew up in a very religious household. And so, from what I gather, as it is with most people, he has some religious trauma. Because you're right, this church in the film has ruined Charlie's life, Liz's life, and Alan's life. I don't agree with Thomas, and I'll tell you why.
All right.
Because shit, hang on, I had that actor's name right on.
Ty something.
Yeah, Ty. Ooh, he was in one Iron Man movie.
Yes, he was.
Ty Simpkins. He said something in the special features that I 100% agreed with, and it made Thomas more of a sympathetic character. Thomas is trying to prove to himself his own faith. That's what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily has ministering for new life ruined him. He's trying to make sure the thing that he's dedicated his life to is true. As we're, of course, Charlie and Liz both are like, no, it's ruined our lives. But I just realized I didn't circle back to the point of Samuel. So definitely some religious trauma, and that kind of bleeds over. And I think the reason why that's in the film, and probably also in the play as well, is religious trauma. I feel people can relate to, because someone has gone through that, or at least can understand where they're coming from. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think so. Maybe one thing that people wouldn't like about this movie is how there's a bunch of different like things going on, you know? So like there's certainly this religious aspect of it with Thomas, and, you know, the aspect of Charlie. There's a bunch of different branches. So that's something I think that's worth pointing out, is that there is kind of a lot of these different branches in this movie that I think some people might find too busy. But I think that's why it's especially worth watching a second time, because it really just pieces everything together. You just really get to see everyone is trying to do something for themselves to make them kind of feel, you know, better or whatever. And I think for sure Thomas's character is a jab at religion, you know, and it's like I appreciated that they don't put a denomination or a specific religion on it, because I think you're real right. Like there's trauma with religion with people, and I think that's something that people will they're going to cringe at. I think that might be like another, like, it's just, there's some cringy scenes with Thomas, and especially at the end, and so getting this perspective of religion, and like, it seems, I mean, I think it's wrong, right? Like what we see on TV is like not right. That's not the way to do it. And like, people are just projects, or you're just trying to get another person to commit to your specific belief so that you can feel better about yourself. And that's just like completely false, but that's how so much of it is. And even somebody like Thomas can be just, I'm just trying to do this for me. But from Charlie's perspective, it probably couldn't be further from the truth. And Charlie can see something that Thomas can't. And I think that's what's so cool about Thomas's character, and the ploy on religion in this is that I think a lot of times people only see from their perspective. And again, this is what I really love about Charlie's character, is that he does have an ability to kind of see from everyone else's perspective. And for whatever reason, he doesn't want to look through like his own. He's got so many other issues that he needs to deal with, but he doesn't. But he's able to see things from other people's perspective. And he has grace. I think an ironic thing is the grace that Charlie has with Thomas, after, saying the stuff that he says about Alan. And so I think there's this, they use the religion piece. For me, it was just like, I know a lot of religious people, obviously. I have like that background. I've worked at a church for several years, and it's very easy for people in religion to get stuck on their views and what they think is right. Just like I think the last film, Doubt, was perfect. Like, it's just, you have your belief, your perspective, and you think that's it, and there's nothing else. And I think that's what Thomas kind of gives as another tool to the story, another just more character to the story. Is like, he's got his perspective, and it's a religious one, and I think it is again used to kind of amplify some of that empathy that Charlie has. I think it's also like for sure a jab at like a religion in general, because like I mean, whenever he's coming back and sharing the passage with Charlie, I was like, oh my gosh. And then saying the things about Alan is like, it's too late for Alan, but it's not too late for you. It's like, dude, this is terrible. And of course, nobody wants to be a part of anything like that. And so that's just kind of some thoughts I had about Thomas.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. And you know what, what you were saying, Zach, it made me think of, and shout out to our episode on silence. That's exactly what it made me think of, is, this person who's so set in their own perspective. Because, I don't think I've made it a secret on the show. I was raised Baptist, but I was always raised of, yes, it is the job of a Christian to gospel, to go out there to help the non-believers believe. But I was always raised as, you don't force it on people. You tell them the good news, you tell them what they could gain. This is going to sound really terrible, but to put it in words, a sales pitch, essentially. But I was always raised to not just force it. Like, oh, well, hey, well, you need to be going to church, which is kind of what Thomas is doing, especially like with what you said, Zach, with when he comes back for the final time and gives him the one thing that Charlie doesn't want to hear, which is, it was too late for Alan. It's not too late for you. Because as we see, Charlie doesn't believe that at all. He doesn't believe it was late for Alan. It's, sometimes I have a hard time. I don't think I've ever told Jeremy this before, but like sometimes I do have a hard time when a film goes down a religious road. As long as it's done well and in respect. And I do agree, they are definitely taking a jab. But it wasn't a jab in like, oh, well, you're wrong if this is what you believe in. It was definitely more so of, again, what you were saying, Zach, when they get so laser focused on their perspective. And it's all about the dogma, essentially. And I think we really see that in Thomas. But again, I think it's definitely for his own game, one, but that ties into him trying to prove to himself that his faith is real, that he's not wrong in his faith. And I think that's why he's trying so hard to save Charlie, because again, it is a very selfish need, but he thinks that, well, if I can save Charlie, then my faith is real.
Yeah,
well, he also feels that obligation, right? He feels that obligation to help Charlie because he was there at the right time to help him through that cardiac episode in the beginning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, seeing that as a sign.
Yeah, he saw it as, well, I was put there for a reason. Like, this wasn't an accident. Like, I was there when you needed someone the most. And where Liz obviously has a very different and unique perspective, because not only does she grow up in the town with this prevalent religion, but her dad runs the church,
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was fascinating. When that reveal, was revealed. That was stupid. Anyway,
I was gonna say, it's not really revealed. It's said to us in like the first 5 minutes.
Okay. So when she was talking about how it was, the only reason why she knows Charlie in the first place is because she's Alan's sister, and her dad runs the church, and there was that arranged marriage for Alan because her dad just wouldn't accept that he was homosexual. And I think that, of course, that the homosexuality plays a big part in this because Samuel D. Hunter is himself homosexual, and that growing up in a predominantly I'm so sorry. Shut up. It's my cat. Growing up in a predominantly religious community, I mean, that's got to do a number on you, especially if it's like a really conservative religious community. That can't be fun. So,
yeah, and that's actually what he said in the special features. He said that it was really hard growing up in this town because he definitely felt like he couldn't. We talk about it now in 2023. He felt like he couldn't be his true self, in fear of being not accepted or in fear of judgment. And I don't know if you knew this, Jeremy, but since we're on Samuel, this fear of not being able to be himself led to overeating, and the story is semi autobiographical. He sees himself as Charlie. Now, he never got as big as Charlie, but he said that he gained a lot of weight, but he had the right people in his life to get him off that road. And that's was kind of the inspiration for the play, which is, well, what if there was someone who didn't have that off ramp? And what would that look like? So it is interesting that it's almost like this is what could have happened to me had I not had these people in my corner, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, Liz is obviously like the reason he's still alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liz is, is his guardian angel. She's amazing. Now, when we get that bombshell that he has a ton of money, over $100,000, and when she is oh my god, I'm so sorry. When when she's like, well, when my car broke down and I had to walk, I had to carry groceries in the snow, he was like, yeah, but the money's for her, you know what I mean? Like I felt, oh, sorry. Now my wife is yelling at the cat. You feel so bad for her, and you feel as if, now Charlie's the one hiding something. It's not. I don't think obviously he wasn't doing it to be malicious. He's not doing it because he feels that she isn't deserving of anything. He's just doing it because this is what the money's for. Like, full stop. This is what the money. I can't spend it on anything else. I can't get a wheelchair. I can't get things to help around the house. I can't go to the doctor. I can't go to the hospital. This is it. This is what the money's for, Ellie. Right?
Well, and he does say, I offered to fix it, because I think that would have been the exception, since Liz, again, as you said, Liz is keeping him alive. But, Liz is so, she has her own guilt, for keeping him alive. She says, I didn't want you to do that because I thought you only had $700 in your account.
Right. And of course, they both feel beholden to one another because of Alan. So they need to be in each other's lives because they're the only connection they have to Alan. Alan is their connection, right? And of course, coincidentally, she's a nurse, I guess, and is able to help in that way, but, and again, like, you feel so bad for Liz because she's trying to help him in any way she can, but then she's having to really struggle with herself and with her obviously she's a nurse. She wants to keep everyone as healthy as possible, but she's having to enable with getting him the sub sandwiches, getting him the bucket of chicken. It is, I feel so bad for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brendan has said that about the character of Liz and all the press for the film, which is, Liz is, like you just said, she's trying to keep him alive, but she is enabling him. She's not, I don't want to say she's not trying that hard, but she's really not. She's not really trying that hard to maybe change some of his, his eating habits or anything like that, like with the bucket of chicken at the beginning of the movie.
Do you think a small part of her thinks he deserves it too? Because that's why Charlie's eating himself to death, is he thinks he deserves it, right? Or at least he's gotten to that point where there's no getting out of it. He's just stuck. But
I would say maybe a very small part of Liz. Okay. I would say maybe 2%. 2% thinks he does deserve it, because I think somewhere deep down in Liz, she knows he left not only his wife, but his 8-year-old daughter for her brother.
She may care about that. But there's no evidence to this, by the way, in the film that she has any animosity towards him at all, besides the killing himself with his lifestyle, because Alan killed himself, and so why are you doing the same? Why do I have to go through that again?
Right. Yeah, so I was just going to say the other 98%, I think she's just more she just, yeah, exactly what you just said. You finished out my 98% there.
Cool.
She also she's like the mirror to Thomas of like, like Thomas just wants Charlie to change like how he's living, to like believe in God so that he can have salvation. And Liz tells him, she's like, I don't think people can change. She doesn't think people can change. I think that's maybe part of it too, is like she doesn't expect Charlie to change because people can't change. And so she keeps bringing him the meatball subs, even though he almost chokes and dies on it while she's doing his dishes. She hands him the sub right back, and it's like, well, like, do you actually care about this person if you're just giving them the meatball sub that almost killed them, literally? Right, and that just continues, I think, to be like the contradicting thing, though, of like of caring for somebody, of loving someone in tough situations. Of I think, as I'm thinking about it, that's like part of the non-religion part of it, is like she thinks she's helping. I would imagine she feels like she's helping, but she also communicates too, like, hey, I can't do this anymore. Like, she knows this isn't like what's best, and she's maybe mad at him, and she says she's mad at him for putting her through this again, which is obviously the other side of the spectrum with her brother, who starved himself to death. And so now Charlie is eating himself to death. So she's getting just this. But I think a part of it is like she tells him, she's like, people don't change. Like, you can't change anybody. And so I think a part of her belief is maybe just, this guy's not going to change, because for whatever reason, that's a part of who she is. And I think that's another just play on Thomas's character, of someone who just wants people to change, to be, better, or, more holy, or whatever the different religion is. And Liz kind of counterbalances that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's right, because I mean, God, poor Liz. I tend to, I guess I tend to fall more on Liz's side, just because I don't know, I just think that she goes through the most, I think, because she had to deal with Alan. Now she's having to deal with Charlie, and especially what she felt was that betrayal of not helping her out financially when he had the money, right? Where he could have lent
you felt
a hand.
it. You felt it, the pain.
Oh.
Yeah, like, the
betrayal.
Yeah, when she says,
she
we could
did
have gotten
so
you.
Good.
Yeah, we could have gotten you whatever you needed.
Physical therapy, the help, and it's just like, she was so betrayed. Yeah, she absolutely crushed that scene.
There's a character in this film that I feel is extremely important, yet so subtle, is the pizza guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Dan
is everybody. What I mean by that is Dan represents going outside. Dan represents strangers. Dan represents people he knows. Dan represents people who knew him before. He doesn't want anybody to see him, right? As evidence to him pretending his camera's broken on his computer when he's teaching his lessons, which he used to teach in person. But I love Dan, and it also, this is the most play-like thing in the film, is the window, right? Where we're seeing people pass by the window through the curtains, which I love. And I love how Aronofsky shoots those scenes, in particular with the blocking and with the camera movements, to where we're always aware of it, because he's always aware of who's coming and going, because he doesn't, he's hyper aware of who gets to see him and who doesn't, right? Dan is fascinating because when Dan finally sees Charlie, it's Charlie's worst fear, in that Dan immediately rejects him, thinks he's gross, doesn't want anything to do with him, and is like, not frightened, but really taken aback.
Yeah, and that's what, and that's what triggers this binge that Charlie goes on, because you're right. It's and Charlie can tell, no words were spoken, just the look on Dan's face this immediate rejection because of the way you look, because you're so fat or you're so disgusting or something. And, and Charlie deals with it the only way he knows how to deal with it, which is just he binge eats. And, my mom, when I talked my mom into going to see the movie, we talked a lot about this sequence. And she hit it pretty hard on the head, which is, if he could have killed himself right then and there, that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
If he could have just ended it all right there, it would have happened, had he not probably thrown all that food back up.
Yeah, it was a tough scene. It was, it's one of those scenes that I'm not sure if it's in the play. That would be very difficult for an actor to do it once a night, at least.
Or 3 times a night, depending.
If it's a weekend. Yeah, so I don't know if that's in there, but I think, like Zach was saying in the beginning, there are things in here in this film cinematically, even though they're not in the play, like taking a shower, for instance. These are the scenes that sort of put you in or give you more of a graphic view than the play would, because the play, you're there already. So he was exactly, I mean, Zach, you're right. When, at a play, you don't really need it because you're there, right? In the film, you need things to get you there and to really put you in that space and to really make you understand this character situation. And I think that obviously taking a shower and the prosthetics, and because I don't know if you've seen pictures of them on stage, but it's not very convincing. It really is, they're wearing just a fat suit. I mean, they do nothing to the neck, to the hands. It's really just they're wearing a fat suit. It works because it's a play, right? There's such a unique suspension of disbelief when it comes to plays, which I love. But in this binge eating scene, it really is very graphic, and we're not used to seeing people like that, and so it is sort of jarring.
Can I give you a little fun fact, buddy?
I would love it.
Our good friend Jazz, when I convinced her to watch this movie, straight up told me that scene made her throw up.
Really?
Yeah. She said she legitimately threw up during that scene. She said she didn't hate the movie, but as you said, it's very jarring. And, I remember us sitting in the theater watching it. It was hard for me to watch. Not that it made me sick, just because I knew what he was doing. I knew that this was the only thing he could think of, that this is how I can cope with it. I'm just going to eat everything. And of course, like what my mom said is he was just trying to end it right then and there.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely is another scene. I mean, you see all the good things in Charlie, and I think again, like that, what Jeremy had brought up about just being obese and how that creates kind of a gap or whatever. You almost kind of forget that Charlie, has an eating disorder or whatever. He's helping his daughter. He's comforting Liz. And there's just a bunch of good things that we're getting to see, like the goodness in Charlie. But then, of course, he had this episode that happens after he makes that contact with Dan, and he just abruptly, so sudden, reminded, like, oh, this guy does have a problem still, like, and it hurts, like it's uncomfortable to watch, and it's sad, it's heartbreaking, because just like you said, for the most part, what he's trying to do, and it just crushes you.
Yeah, and then it took me the second time watching it, why he got fired from his job, but then it was the email he sent to all his students. Which, Jeremy, since you used to work at a college, so if a professor actually did do that, would they have gotten fired if the students complained enough?
It depends. I mean, like, listen, I'm not going to name names. But his name is Bob Templeton, and he worked for the Midland Reporter Telegram. And it took quite a bit for him to get fired. So probably one of the worst people to ever work there. He was not a nice person, inappropriate with female students, and he worked there for quite a long time, past when he should have. So this in particular, definitely a reprimand, definitely a write-up, maybe, I don't know, maybe some suspension, but fired, I don't know.
Yeah, because, all we know is he says, like, your complaints have been heard and I'm being replaced.
Yeah, I mean, listen, students complain about professors all the time. It's nothing new. But that in particular, I don't know if it would have gotten him, like, fired for sure. No, not necessarily, because it wasn't too vulgar and it wasn't inappropriate in an uncomfortable sense, but it just was like he was just swearing and there's a paper trail. So,
but yeah, so this is the part of the film that I loved more than everything. So, we get this very jarring scene of Charlie literally just trying to end it all. I'm just gonna eat till I'm dead. And we're on pretty much the last day of his life. And he has that final confrontation with Ellie, and he finally achieves what he's been trying to tell her all week, which is, you're an amazing person. You're capable of being nice. You've just forgotten. And it's so good, because just like Requiem, Darren is using music to build the emotion and build everything between these two characters. And it's, to be honest, it's one of my favorite scenes. This last 10 minutes of the movie.
This will bring us to what I think is an extremely important topic, which is the title itself, The Whale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I think most people, maybe not most, but some would say, it's obvious it's because he's obese, and that's obviously not the point. Because the whale is obviously referring to Moby Dick, which an essay that he reads to bring him comfort is about Moby Dick. And when he's reading it, and when you're actually listening to what the essay is, it's not nice. It's not a fair representation of the book necessarily. It's not accurate necessarily, but it's true to the author, and the author is Ellie. And it's the most honest thing he's ever read, because it was written by someone who isn't going to lie to you when it comes to her opinions, right? And it's so important to him, and he treasures it so much that that he reads it for comfort and to calm himself down. And in that moment in the very beginning, when he has Thomas read it, he thinks that's the last words he's ever going to hear. So, he wants this to be the last words he's ever going to hear, because not only is it an honest piece of writing, which is what he loves, but it's by the most important person that he knows, which is Ellie. And there's also some parallels between Ahab and Charlie, and searching and trying to attain a mission and a goal, right? And to to finally achieve it or to finally go for it, no matter what, even if it kills you. But yeah, so thoughts?
No, I completely agree. And I actually missed that because I'm going to be honest, I've never read Moby Dick. So I missed that.
No one has.
Ellie's...
Everyone just pretends.
I mean, I've seen In the Heart of the Sea, so I mean, that's essentially Moby Dick. But yeah, so I never realized that Ellie's paper is as Charlie says, it's you. It's very honest, very brutally honest. And Charlie, and I think this is why Charlie is so hell bent on having Ellie understand that it's okay to be truthful, because I mean, you already were, but yeah, I long story short, I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, no, it's a great scene. I think ultimately, it sums up, Charlie tried to save someone, he failed. Thomas tried to save someone, he failed. Liz tried to save her brother and Charlie, she failed. And so we don't really get to know necessarily that he gets to save his daughter. But he does remind her, and it's clear, and Sadie breaks, she breaks from kind of who she is, allows the vulnerability to come out as she's reading. And you get to see Charlie maybe get to at least point his daughter back in the right direction, but maybe save her. And it's just done with this thing that's been kind of in and out of the whole movie. And it finally has, just has a ton of meaning whenever she comes in and she's like, what the freaking hell is this? I failed. You want me to flunk out of high school? And he's like, well, read the paper, and we learned that it's hers. And, yeah, it's just a beautiful scene that just I think brings a lot of the story together of Charlie trying to save, his daughter, once he finally reconnects. And, maybe feels like, yeah, he couldn't save Alan, like him and Liz talk about. And so this was his last kind of push to be able to do it. But it was a super beautiful scene.
Yeah, I think because, with the essay, it's not just that it's an honest, representation of how she felt about the book. It's what she says in it, because she even talks about, she feels, a sort of sadness, and she feels a sort of loneliness, and she feels as if a part of herself is sort of missing, and it's all because he left, right? This is around the time, this is a few years after he left. And, obviously that I'm sure brings him a tremendous amount of guilt, number one. But the fact that she was able to write it down and be so vulnerable, he knows that she's capable of that. And you're right, that, that he knows that she can remember how to be that way again, especially by revisiting this essay.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I love that she's, exactly like what you two said, is that, she's still trying to hold on to her armor, and then she finally lets it all slide because she, despite everything we've seen up until this point, she doesn't want her dad to die. No child wants their parent to die. But the fact that she still decides to read it to him clues us in is that she still loves her dad, or at least still cares for him. And what I love is the thing that makes me love the scene so much, besides not only, of course, the writing and the direction and the music, but is when Ellie calls back to when we first meet her, which is, I want you to get up and walk to me. And he's able to do it. And so seeing that, she starts to meet him halfway. And it's such a good scene.
In the play, he takes that deep breath and then it cuts to black, and that's the end of the play.
Okay.
In this film, and I read that this was not in the original script because Aronofsky put it in later, was the beach. He put it in afterward. Samuel Hunter didn't do that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about it, because I think that's giving me too much of a he did die. In the play you sort of get that ambiguity,
yeah,
which can carry you through a while.
Yeah, I think it's because Aronofsky and Samuel probably talked, because apparently they worked together very, very closely on the script together. I think they just wanted to answer the question, does he actually die? And
sure, I mean, it doesn't need to, we're going to do another Aronofsky next season. I wrote it down, so it's happening.
Is it The Fountain?
No, it's not The Fountain, although, that'd be cool.
Is it The Wrestler?
And he's not shy about ambiguous endings. So,
right.
I don't know. There's actually the movie we're going to do next season with Aronofsky. I won't tell you what it is, but it's almost the same plot as this one, so Google it. But
I already know.
Yeah, you know what it is. But I don't know. I would have liked a little more ambiguity. I loved the shot of him going towards the white light, because that's exactly what Thomas says would happen, right? Thomas says that he would be he'd be lifted up and his body will be made of light, right? So I liked that whether he's actually, dying, having a heart attack or what, I see it as him bringing back that piece of information, and and that's what he's seeing, right?
Right.
I don't know. What'd you guys make of it?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it does. It doesn't necessarily say like Charlie's going to some heaven or anything specific, but I think there's like a religious, like a tug to something that happens after, with many religions, like after death, you can go to a better place or whatever. And it just kind of pulls on that a little bit. I think recalling that, the light, and I think the whole walking there and just like the build up to it, and the flashing back to the scene, it feels like he's going to, like the peaceful place or whatever. And so I think it is like kind of like just a tug on what, paradise might be for someone as they pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. Again, Jeremy, because this is what we do. I do believe he did die. I believe that was Aronofsky and Samuel saying, yes, he died. But again, I think it was, and it was such a good image to leave the audience with, that he died, but he sort of flashed back to a moment in his life with the beach where he was content, with his daughter, the happiest. Yeah. Which is interesting, because I would have thought maybe Alan would have popped up, but it was when he was with his daughter, and Mary. Yeah, it's just, the movie is so phenomenal. no wonder Brendan got an 8-minute standing ovation. It's, I really tried to get Ashley to watch it with me. Like, I was like, please, I want you to watch this with me. You'll love it. And she was like, I don't want to be bummed out. I'm like, and it's barely 2 hours long. Did Haley watch it with you, buddy?
She did. Yeah. Yeah, she watched it with me. Yep.
I'm gonna totally guilt Ashley now.
Okay. Let me rephrase. She was playing her fish game next to me while it was on. So, no, she did have questions every now and then and whatever. I mean, it wasn't like she was completely like disconnected from it. But she may have even been doing like something. I think you were like cleaning the rabbit cage, right, or something during it. Yeah. So, yeah. So, but she did watch some of it, and she was like, "Yeah, that guy died for sure." And I was like, "All right, cool."
Just like her whole for sure that Father Flynn.
Yes, she was like, "Yep, he did it. There's no doubt in my mind." I go, "Okay."
So she was like, "This movie should be called No Doubt."
Boom.
Oh man.
No diggity. Jesus Christ. That's on me.
Well,
anyway, all right, Rain. Are you ready to wrap up?
I am. I was actually about to start the wrap up, man.
Okay, great.
Once again, man, like I said at the top of the show, what a banger to not only end this end of season series, but this season on. I remember after we saw The Whale, I was itching to talk about it, but we were still very much into our films we hadn't seen, and we had literally just saw the movie, so it wasn't going to work.
Done. Guy.
But again, yes, there's some controversy surrounding the film, but it doesn't take away from the film at all, in my opinion. Again, you can see why Brendan Fraser got an 8-minute standing ovation.
Sure.
At was it Cannes?
I don't know. I think that's usually where they don't tell people to sit down. I think is Cannes. I think you could have a standing ovation as long as you need it to be. But I do have an oops I forgot.
Oh, okay.
We've been going through this whole thing, and good Lord, can you believe we didn't talk about Samantha Morton? Whoopsies.
Oh yeah.
She's incredible.
Mary.
And what's interesting about her character is that she also has a problem. She drinks too much. Like that's and she's a total drunk, and she's probably a bad mom. But because she's so bitter too, right? It's like her bitterness towards Charlie just rubs off on everyone, And even there's a moment where they're talking, and she says something snarky about Ellie, and he says something positive, and she goes, "You still do that?" Like, be nice. Like, yeah. How they were ever together, who knows?
She crushed it, though. She did. It was
Samantha Morton's incredible.
She was, yeah.
Shout out to Schenectady, New York.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah. All right, I'm done.
Oh man,
that's all I had. We forgot about them. That's all.
Wow. So Jeremy, so compared to season 2, the first time we actually did a legitimate end of season series, I'm not counting the end of season 1 because I already had that idea locked and loaded before we decided to redo the show the way it is now. So compared to stage to screen back in season 2 versus this version, I don't want to say which one was your favorite, but which end of season series would you say we hit more on?
I don't know. As far as quality of film, I mean, it's hard not to say the first one was better because we had 12 Angry Men, we had Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Bug, and The Sunset Limited. I mean, I listened to part of The Sunset Limited today on Audible. Like, it's too good. And, you know, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is just so amazing and so layered and so in your face and amazing. Tracy Letts is one of the great playwrights that it's like, you know, who's even Tracy Letts? And you're like, oh, well, you know, Bug and August Osage County and Killer Joe. I mean, these are stories that are incredible. Bug is especially unique. And of course, 12 Angry Men's a classic. These were different, but I don't think in a negative way. I do think that they're also very unique in their own right because we're dealing with films or stories and plays now in this time that are a little bit more made to be adapted into films. Like,
okay,
like I said before, these don't feel as play-like. I think with this is an exception. I think The Whale is pretty self-contained and you can see it being on the stage, but One Flew Over I can't. You know?
Yeah.
And Glengarry Glen Ross maybe, but there's a lot of different locations that it just lends itself to be a film, right? And Doubt is pretty play-like, I guess, as well, but it still seems more theatrical. So I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
Zach, were you listening?
I agree.
Then? When we did those,
I was.
Nice.
I
mean, yeah, I agree. It definitely felt like this time around you picked films that almost in a way followed a similar theme of, you know, oh my god, I lost the thread.
Okay.
Similar theme of sort of ambiguity and you know, overcoming something and redemption, except for Doubt. There's not a redemption arc in Doubt, but definitely overcoming something. As where, you know, season 2, of course, we were still trying to find our footing. I mean, you still picked some great films. I mean, of course, I'm never going to forget Sunset Limited. I mean,
you can't. Nobody can. It's too good.
That was so good. Yeah, man. You know, I mean, who knows what's going to happen if you decide to do stage to screen Act 3?
I will actually. There's plenty more. So, yeah, plenty more. So,
yeah.
Zach, what'd you think? Did you have fun?
This was fun. No, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's different than listening, obviously. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun to get to work through the movie with you guys.
Yeah. Well, and we loved having you on, man. I mean, definitely. You know,
it won't be the last time.
We always love having people on who share our love of film and can give us fresh perspective. And yeah, so thanks for coming on, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, I don't want to hurt y'all's listening, like, viewership.
It's too late.
Be on too many times and not have anybody listening, or turn that 3 minute into a minute and a half.
Yeah, I do.
No, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Just for, you know, a spoiler for next season, I do have an episode in mind for you. So we'll tell you later. But so you'll come back. So
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Alrighty. Well, Jeremy, Zach, if there's nothing more, we will let everyone go. We hoped you enjoyed our season finale, The Whale, and we're going to see you all in season 9.